Here.
Ken Jones,
Here.
Jeff Gard,
Here.
Alina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
Quorum.
Okay, the item on this public hearing is Resolution 12-18-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, adopting harbor fees, rates, and charges for the 2019 calendar budget. Would anybody in the public like to comment on the rate structure? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
I'll say something. I didn't plan on saying anything, but since it came up, Greg Meyer, 1 Cannery Road, and I haven't even looked at the rate structure, but we've been using city dock, fuel dock, quite a bit with our new 85-foot boat, and we get charged about $150 a day to use it. And there's ladders on there without rungs. Piling busted. I mean, it's just in pathetic shape. And I don't know if it's something you guys are gonna look at, or and I don't know if we're getting charged in the winter for offloading gear a day and not. I mean, something you want to look at. Dock's in really bad shape, and I don't know. Just thought I'd mention it.
I'm sorry, which dock was that?
It's the city dock, fuel dock.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what the official title is. Anyway, it just seems like a lot of money for something in pretty bad shape.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other public comments? We just have 4 minutes till the regular meeting, so just wait it out for a minute. comments on resolution 12-18-32, adopting harbor fees, rates, and charges for the 2019 calendar budget? Going once, going twice, adjourned. Motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.
And
Second.
I'll second it.
Ready?
yes.
Okay, I'll call the regular city council meeting on December 5th to order at 7 o'clock. Please join me in pledging the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
James Burton,
Here.
Ken Jones,
Here.
Jeff Guard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
That's quorum.
Approval of the regular agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved as submitted. Does council have any conflicts of interest to disclose? Councilman Meyer.
Just a disclosure that I'm the daughter of the people that own the Reluctant Fisherman Inn, and they have a renewal for a liquor license. I don't have a financial interest, but just disclosing it. Sometimes
Hey, do you have any financial interest in their business?
work for them on occasion, but I don't direct.
Stock
Yeah.
options.
I don't see a
I don't have any
conflict.
stock options. That'd be nice.
I don't see a conflict. Does council feel that this is a conflict?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any, so. Okay, well, thank you for disclosure anyway. Any other conflicts of interest to disclose? Okay, hearing none. Communications by and petitions from visitors. We don't have any guest speakers scheduled for today. Are there any audience comments regarding agenda items? Okay, seeing none, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. School board?
Good evening, Alex Russin, Superintendent of Schools. Not a whole lot to report. We had a little bit of excitement Friday morning, as the community of Cordova did. We evacuated our high school building with the some of the tremors that we felt from the earthquake near Anchorage, and had students in the gymnasium over at the elementary school for a couple of hours until we were more assured that things were safe and it was okay for them to be back. Appreciated the staff's efforts at doing a safe and orderly evacuation along with the students. The timing of it was sort of as students were just getting ready to start the school, so we feel real good about how things were. A little bit to improve, but as with any situation, we could always do a little bit better. Our volleyball team and our wrestlers were in Anchorage at the time, and getting ready to participate in the state volleyball competition. So I wanted to just give a shout out to their coach and the chaperones who were there with the students, just to make them feel safe, as it was a very worrisome experience that for some of them it was their first time experiencing anything like that as far as emergencies and so forth. So everybody did a great job, but I just wanted to publicly acknowledge and thank those adults and chaperones and the coach who was there to ensure that they were all safe. I think that's about it. I just wanted to say thanks to a couple of council members that I was able to connect with in recent weeks, just talking about school operations and some budgeting questions and so forth. So I appreciated their time and making time to come and talk to me about that. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council? Or? All right, thank you, Alex. Yeah, and I don't think we have anyone from CECMC tonight. It is Administrator Scott's anniversary tonight, so I think he had other plans this evening. And our student council representative.
She was just here. She was in the dress rehearsal.
Oh, okay. Are having a dress rehearsal, so she just excused herself there. And maybe we can catch her a little bit later in the program. Approval of the consent calendar. It's one item there.
On the consent calendar,
So roll call, please.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
James Weiss.
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved.
Okay, approval of the minutes of the November 7th regular meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the 11/7/18 regular council meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved as submitted. We don't have any bids to consider this evening. Reports of officers. Susan?
Me?
Oh, I saw your hand up. I wasn't sure if you were, okay, sorry. Mayor's report, I didn't submit a written report, and I don't really have a verbal report prepared. I have been in fairly frequent contact with our lobbyist, John Bitney, trying to, A, get some engagement with the new administration, and also just to try to keep the pulse of how the leadership is setting up, and it's fairly fixed on the Senate side now with the Republican caucus. And I haven't heard since Friday what happened with the tiebreaker on the House seat, but I think the House is still in the process of organizing their leadership and deciding which way a caucus might form. And then the administration has been selecting cabinet members, and we're especially watching the Fish and Game Commissioner, which even though it says interim, that's just kind of a formality as they get confirmed by the boards of Fish and Game and so forth and become the regular director. So that's basically, I think, most of what I had to report on the mayor's side.
You didn't go to Norvik?
What's that?
You didn't go to Norvik?
No. Didn't go to participate. So manager's report.
As you know, the meeting for tomorrow evening, the facilitated meeting has been canceled. Going to reschedule that for, I think she's trying to do the last week in December. But she'll send out an invitation for that. I've basically just been reconstructing the budget because many of the pieces of the budget Barb and I have been working on, we don't have templates for that, so we're having to remake some of that stuff. Barb's been inputting numbers and has to go into Cassell every year from the budget format. I sent out an updated budget to you. We've since gone through each line item again, and so there'll be a few changes, but not far off from what you saw last time. And as soon as I get that updated, I'll send it to you again. There's a borough meeting coming up. It's in Whittier. Do we have any volunteers to go? Because Clay, you sent out an email regarding that, and we're going to have a televised meeting here, but
December 13th.
December 13th. And why am I thinking that's a Friday?
It's a Thursday.
So
It's a Thursday. Okay. Sylvia Lang did offer to attend, at least to gather information on Cordova's behalf. And, you know, if there's no objection, I would ask her for some kind of a written summary or report to council. She offered to do that at her own expense, so I took her up on it and appreciate that. And in lieu of any councilman going, at least we would have a representative from Cordova willing to attend and listen in and participate. So,
with that, I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
okay. Any questions, council, or online? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to try to catch Olivia, so that's our duck in at the back, but she's kind of back and forth. Clerk's report.
I just had gotten a question about the March 5th election. Of course, a few items later on the agenda that might make their way onto that ballot. And the declaration of candidacy for the open seats, which are mayor, 2 council, 2.
3 council.
Oh, 3. I knew that. 3 council, 2 school board, 2 CCMC. It's gonna be in 10-point font, the ballot, to keep it on one page. Just kidding. January 8th is when the declaration of candidacy opens. I'm sure there'll be a stampede at my door. I was going to say also that tomorrow night is canceled, one less night meeting. And that's really all I have. I can answer any questions.
Any questions, council? Okay, I'll just revert to the mayor's report. I just wanted to remind everyone the Alaska Shellfish Grower Association annual meeting is here in Cordova out at Orca Lodge. There is a reception tonight out at Orca Lodge. It starts at 6:30, and they'll be out there for the next couple of days. And I have a copy of an agenda. I'll try to remember to email that out, I guess, but there are times when people and council can go out and participate if you want. So just appreciate having them here and wanted to mention that. And I'll be doing a welcoming address at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So.
How many participants are there?
I don't know. I think I heard maybe 20 growers, plus or minus. And then there's a lot of state presentations, especially Friday, I think. A lot of presentations by DNR, the reporting entities of this, the ones that review and approve the permits. Then also the state kind of regulatory that in charge of like testing the shellfish and so forth. And then there's some marketing, so it's kind of all aspects of shellfish growing in Alaska. Okay, I have a couple items under correspondence.
Oh, shoot, so under my report, I forgot that I had written, I put the last approved CIP list resolution. And I do believe I've heard from some council members that they are interested in making changes to that, so I will bring it with a new number for the next meeting where we can actually take action on it.
Okay, great.
Visibility of it is why it's in there.
And I might just suggest to council, if you have some thoughts that you want to improve, I guess we just bring it to the meeting. You reminded me of something though. We have the request to write a letter of support for the Essential Air Service. And I called Alaska Airlines and told them that I was kind of struggling to write that letter and wanted to have a conversation with them because we've had such a reduction in service and they're not flying the routes that they used to and we're not getting freight service and we're kind of upset about it. And since we've lost our ferry service and our private carrier, it's very important to us. So they committed to sending freight and their freight manager for Alaska and another staff here to talk to us about that. So I did write the letter and I plan on sending that out before the deadline Friday, the letter of support, but I wanted to have that dialogue with them first and let them know that it's pretty critical to our community and they have not been doing us, they've not provided the levels of service that they have in the past. So. And I know I had a visitor this weekend, it was $500 round trip from Anchorage. So.
So I think what you were about to say about the CIP list is that if council has any ideas ahead of it, obviously don't share that with each other, but it would be a good idea to tell the manager so he can get the right staff to come up with an amount or something so that there's a good discussion.
Thank you. I was starting to say share them with each other and I didn't want to go there. So yeah, if you just send those to Alan, then he can kind of see what you're thinking and coordinate those. So.
Did I CC you in the email I sent Susan? Okay, so you already have my ideas. Yeah, can that email be included in the packet for discussion or should I just?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on reports? Okay, so we have those two correspondences and then under ordinances and resolutions, resolution 12-18-30 on page 19 of the packet here.
Usually you give the title for us, Mr. Mayor.
I know. It's Resolution 12-18-30 and 12-18-31 regarding $5 million of harbor improvements, bond proposition, and raw fish tax proposition for the March 5th, 2019 election.
But separately, we're gonna move and approve each one separately.
Yes, so this is Resolution 12-18-30. Councilman Jones.
I move to approve Resolution 12-18-30, resolution of the City Council of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city issue harbor revenue bonds in the principal amount of not to exceed $5 million to finance the planning, design, construction, and acquisition of harbor and related capital improvements in the city, including without limitation repair and replacement of facilities at the Cordova South Harbor, and to submit the question of the issuance of such bonds to the qualified voters of the city at the March 5th, 2019 regular city election, and declaring the intent of the city of Cordova to reimburse original expenditures for costs of the planning, design, construction, and acquisition of such harbor and related capital improvements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I think it's been identified for quite some time as a the South Harbor reconstruction primarily as a priority of the community. It's coming up over and over again in the ongoing strategic or comprehensive planning process, and it's our current South Harbor is past its life expectancy, and we have a resolution from our Harbor Commission requesting us to do this, and I think that it is the right approach to put it in front of the voters of the city.
And Councilman Jones, just for those online or participating on YouTube, the intention is for that $5 million to be a match with the state's Tier 1 program for an overall $10 million renovation.
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion, council?
Question.
Councilman Schaefer.
So if the Tier 1 grant was not awarded, would we not issue the bond or borrow for the bond to meet the match? Is this only in contingency of the award, or are we gonna go ahead with $5 million of improvements? Either way.
I think procedurally, once the voters have approved the $5 million bond as it's presented, then it's, I think, council's, leeway, I guess, to exercise that. So if you as a council don't want to proceed with the work unless we get the state match, then I think that would be your decision. Does that sound right, Susan?
I would agree. I don't think you'd be required to sell the bonds. Or is that what you do? Sell the bonds? I don't understand bonds.
Yeah, you'd issue the bonds.
Issue the bonds.
Okay, further discussion, council? Councilman Allison?
Yeah, as I understand it though, this resolution doesn't and the language that's there wouldn't preclude using the $5 million without the state grant, but if we used it and then we apply for the grant next year, we wouldn't have the match again, and so we've got to come back and revisit that if it doesn't pass. But I would just like to say I support the ordinance or the resolution, and but I want to be sure that we make a very strong effort in getting the fuel company and seafood processors, charter organization, and anybody who uses that harbor to support it and to support it publicly, so that this vote comes out differently than the last one came out.
Further discussion, council? Councilman Meyer.
Just kind of echoing what Councilman Allison said, and I don't know if we have to do this separately, but I'd like to see the city put some effort into explaining the bond is going to be repaid back with the taxes, because they're going to be voting on them at the same time, so that it's really clear that the information's out there, that the voters know what they're voting on, why.
Okay. Further, oh, go ahead.
Oh, and yeah, I think Alan's on top of that, but, you know, make sure we file whatever we have to file with the election commission so that we can expend resources on making sure this goes through, because it's important for the community, and education is, you know, the key for the voters. They have to understand what they're voting on before we can expect them to support it. So.
The proposition language is right in front of you, just so you know.
Okay.
It's not the completely easiest to understand, but it is clear, I think. So, and the attorney wrote it. I didn't write it.
Okay. Further discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So the next item separately, and I'll go ahead and read this whole resolution, and if the council wants to move it, I think so moved would be appropriate. City of Cordova, Alaska, Resolution 12-18-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, submitting to the qualified voters of the city at the March 5th, 2019 regular city election the question of the levy of a 0.5% tax on the value of raw fish landed in the city, with the proceeds of the tax to be dedicated to pay the cost of harbor improvements, repair and maintenance, including without limitation, payment of debt service on bonds issued to pay the cost of harbor, and related capital improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Jones, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I am in favor of this, as long as we can assure that this tax is dedicated to pay for the cost of the harbor improvements and future waterfront development. That would be one question or concern that I would have for staff, is if we can really dedicate this moving forward for those items. That way it doesn't get eaten up by the general fund.
You are the ones that have approval of the budget, no one else does.
I think, do you mean beyond this council?
I think that it's pretty clear that the 5% is intended to be the methodology for repayment of the bonds. And in my mind, that's how that would be tracked, and those are going to have to go into the bond payment schedule to be paid for that.
But I think the answer is that you can't dedicate a tax to a purpose, and future councils will just have to.
Well, I mean, ideally, we'll get a finance director soon who will put it in a line item as being collected and held into the Harbor Enterprise Fund. I guess, I don't know exactly how to do that. And that would ensure it at least being looked at that way each year at budget time, whether it's a new council or not.
If you look at our bond repayment schedule that's in the budget document, you can see that we have 6 or 7 or 8 bonds that are being repaid. And while those bonds are categorized for whom they were taken out, school, roads, those kinds of things, the revenue to pay for those bonds is not dedicated in that bond document. But we know that we have to have X amount of money for the fish tax. We're gonna get X amount of money from the fees. What I envision is those revenues are sort of run through the harbor, so that you can see that those monies are then going to be used for the bond payments. And you'll be able to determine, for example, if our bond payment's $400,000 and we're getting $500,000 in fish tax, I don't think the intent is to take the money and shoot it back to the general fund. It's all intended for the debt service and payment. And at the end of the day, you are the ones that approve that budget.
So I guess that would bring another question. If we do with a 0.5% fish tax, the numbers were generated off of 2016 because we had the intention of being, conservative with our estimation. So if we have a huge year where a lot of fish comes across our processing facilities here in town, would those excess taxes be applied directly to the principal? Can you pay a bond off quicker? Because I didn't think you could.
No, there are two things that you can do. Is there's a I forget the formal name for it, but under Alaska bonding, our minimum pay down period would be at the end of 10 years. You could pay some down. So we would be collecting the excess funds for at least 10 years, or applying the excess funds to some other harbor project that you approve in the interim.
Would there be a way to, make sure, I guess we can't tie the hands of future councils. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is if there is excess in a particular year, would the harbor then get to keep the excess for other improvements?
Well, again,
That's how it's being voted upon, so yeah, it will be.
Okay.
And we also will have to pass an ordinance at some point, and I don't know exact timing. I'm waiting to hear from the attorneys on this too. There are a lot of other municipalities collecting this tax, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. So we're gonna put heads together and make sure that we put it in code in a way that seems to work, and then it might have to get tweaked here and there or whatever. Possibly we can put some kind of language in there that speaks to where it will be, what it will be used for, because then it's codified at least, and that's a little more there for the future. That's tying the hands of future councils when you put it in code. So they can undo it.
it says the proceeds of the tax to be dedicated to pay the cost of harbor improvements, repair, and maintenance, including the debt service on bonds. I think it's pretty clear.
Right, but we put millions of dollars into the permanent fund dedicated to bond repayment on the schools, and then I'm told that that's not the case, so.
Well, the equal amount of funds are being dedicated to bond payments on the school.
But not from the permanent fund.
But not from the permanent fund as a 7-0 vote every time you gotta do a payment.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as we're keeping it as a harbor tax or a harbor fee or however you want to call it, keep it in the harbor enterprise fund, and don't ever put that 0.5% in the general fund. It should be okay. And like Susan said, I think there's ways that we can make sure that happens.
Okay.
I think the first time we don't do that, somebody's gonna bring up this ballot language and take us to court anyway.
Further discussion, council?
Yeah, I have a couple things to add here. I think we're trying to split hairs here on trying to decide how exactly we can make sure that it's spent only on what we want it spent on. And I think to get a more definitive answer on this, you probably have to get legal advice on it. But I don't think we can tie, even if you put it into the harbor fund, council has the right to take money out of the harbor fund. The harbor is not a separate entity of its own. I think as good a way of any to, tie it as much more firmly as put a sunset clause in this that says when the bond debt is repaid, the tax goes away.
Okay, so there's some timelines here, council, because this has to go, if this goes on the March ballot, it's gonna have to be kind of codified and fixed how it's presented. But anyway, further discussion, council? Councilman Jones.
She's first.
Oh, Meyer.
I guess just to comment on what Jeff said. I wouldn't like to put a sunset clause on this because there's always gonna be maintenance in the harbor that we're gonna need. We took a bond out to fix the road down there. It's a lot of use from boats being loaded in and out. I think there's just always gonna be maintenance and more costs that the harbor is gonna need to use. So I'd rather not do a sunset clause.
Councilman Jones?
I was actually gonna touch on that same point. While normally I would be in favor of a sunset clause on something like this, the harbor in particular is already seeing degradation in other areas. And so even with this bond repaid after 20 years, we're gonna need these tax revenues to fix our ocean dock, our city dock, the other side of the harbor, and even the $10 million that we're going after here, the $5 million bond and hopefully a $5 million pie in the sky grant is only gonna replace 3 or maybe 4 of our floating stock fingers, not all of them. So there is still gonna be more to be done even on top of this. And yeah, this is just getting the project started, and hopefully we can apply for other grants and with the build grants and Tiger grants and get a little larger project scope. But at this juncture, we just have to get the matching funds to get them to even be able to apply for the state grant. So yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of a sunset clause at this time.
Okay, council, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the resolution passes. Next item is resolution 12-18-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, adopting harbor fees, rates, and charges for the 2019 calendar budget.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilman Jones?
This just goes along with the previous resolution. It's a method of repayment for this bond debt and other harbor maintenance needs. The harbor's been neglected for a very long time, and we're trying to play catch up. And while the staff has been doing a great job, it's in a state of aggressive deterioration and not able to keep up with current fees. This is a method of raising those fees to try to do a little better job of maintaining our infrastructure. And also it's the Harbor Commission evaluated fees around the sound and around the state, and these raises are in line with what other municipalities currently charging, or they have structured rate increases going into effect over the next 3 years. So we'll be in line with our competing harbors as we are currently.
Okay. Further discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Should be a roll call, sorry.
I'm sorry, roll call. It's a roll call.
It's a roll call when it's fees and rates. David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
James Weiss,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, don't have any unfinished business on the agenda. Pending agenda calendar and elected and appointed officials lists. Councilman Ellis?
Yeah, I was just gonna, when are the other fees? Are they coming next meeting or?
Yes.
We're thinking budget, fees. What else was I thinking about for next one? Oh. Coho disposal will go to planning commission next Tuesday, well, this coming Tuesday, a week from yesterday. So then it'll make it to us on the 19th. Also, the first step of that. Councilmember Weiss was talking about the Bears, and I put it on pending agenda so we don't forget, and then I heard from Charlotte Westing anyway, so she's aware. And she can't do January, well, unless we do it the first meeting in January, which I didn't know if we were ready for that, so I was thinking February, and I'll get in touch with the others. NVE, and then some city staff, and we'll do it as a work session, right? What did we have planned for quick work sessions off the bat? We keep saying, after the first of the year, after the first of the year. Did I write any down yet? I don't think so. Okay, so that's one of the 2 in February.
Then we'll have the capital, we mentioned earlier, the capital priorities on the next agenda.
Yes.
Council, a lot of times we'll have Bitney either come in and join us then or call in. Is that right when we go through the CIP list? Seems like we do.
Yes, yeah, so, because he's the one pitching it, so
Yeah.
he should be well informed if we're making changes.
Will he have an idea of what the potential priorities are at the state level yet, or no?
He is, okay, I'm not sure if he went to Juneau and then went back to do some cleanup, but he will be in Juneau soon. If he isn't by the 19th, he should be in Juneau. And he should be starting to get the pulse of leadership, and they start talking about, I forget when the governor's preliminary budget has to come out, but they will be talking about what they're gonna do with the capital budget. So he'll start to have an idea for where we might have opportunities. So. It seemed like a councilman ran something by me and I said, get it on the pending agenda this meeting, but I can't remember what it is. And,
Oh, you know, on the 19th, are we having a work session? Or are we gonna have one more budget one before approval? So when are we gonna?
I didn't have a particular plan for the 19th, but we can talk about the budget on the 19th. We can actually make changes as we sit there, as long as we have a balanced budget. But we'll have to adjust the numbers and resolutions and so forth, so.
Which just might be hard.
If you're,
would you prefer to talk about budget that night and it's on the agenda for action that night?
council, so thinking a work session before and then have it on the agenda for the meeting, or?
I'd like to try to put a budget approval in a regular meeting, not in a special meeting.
I agree, but we've kind of had 2 or 3 cuts of a manager's budget that really hasn't changed significantly, and there hasn't been a lot of feedback, so I don't, do we anticipate much changes at this point, or? So, is there any objection to having it on the budget of the 19th for approval? We could still schedule a work session, I guess. Okay, sounds like that would be all right, so.
So I might scratch the work session of the 19th unless you have something else you want to talk about.
I don't have anything.
Okay, do you anticipate proposing any changes, or would it just be anything that council brought?
No, it's just more tweaking than it is anything.
Okay.
A little adjustment here and a little adjustment there, and we have, a couple of line items, which I can tell you right now are gonna be the line item for consultants and the line item for capital projects that have about $80,000 in those 2 line items. And that's where we'll make adjustments from those. Those line items will decrease and the other ones will be changed as they need to be. That's the only place you have any adjustments.
Okay. And I'm gonna be on vacation out of state on the 19th, so is that, I can probably call in.
Dave, you'll be around.
Yeah. All right, anything else for pending agenda? And then as Susan mentioned, we'll probably.
One question here, are we planning on doing a one more final budget workshop?
Not at this point.
Or we pass the budget, or are we just gonna deal with the budget at the next?
Yeah, at this point, there's not a plan to have another work session on the budget. It would just be coming to the December 19th regular meeting for approval with a couple small tweaks, as the manager mentioned.
Okay.
Okay. Audience participation. Seeing none. Council comments. I'll start to my left with Councilman Schaefer.
Good job to everyone who responded on Friday and kept everyone in good spirits. And also good job to the volleyball team. And thanks for coming, everyone.
Councilman Jones.
Thanks to everybody for coming out, and thank you to my fellow council members for supporting the harbor. Hopefully these pass and we can start rebuilding a vital piece of infrastructure in our community.
Councilman Weiss.
Thank you everyone for your attendance, and thank you to Sylvia Lynn to attend our borough meeting in Whittier at our own expense. It was great.
Okay, thank you. Online, Councilman Burton.
No comment other than just echoing the thanks that have already been said.
Okay, Councilman Guard.
Yeah, no comment.
Councilman Meyer.
Thanks everyone for showing up and coming to the meeting tonight.
Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. I'd like to also congratulate the school for their efforts, and not that they'll ever hear it, but a shout out to ACS for picking up the state volleyball tournament Friday. It's not had any damage to their school, but it was it was ducked there for a while whether they were going to finish that tournament or not. ACS picked that thing up, and I think it is just interesting to note for this borough meeting that Valdez is planning on sending their city manager, so that was just an interesting side note to me, so thank you.
How come I didn't know that?
It's in the memo.
Okay, we just have one more agenda item, council, an executive session to review the city manager's evaluation.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Ellison.
Move to go into executive session to discuss the city manager's evaluation matters that might tend to prejudice the reputation of an individual.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.